Okay, in this lecture we're going to talk about how to create an online assessment. To start an online assessment, you first need to go to your to a folder within Blackboard, and I would recommend that if you do a lot of online assessments like this, that you might actually want to create a folder like I have here in some cases where you put all your exams. So you might just call it the exam folder. For today's purposes, I won't create a special folder for that, but just show you how to create the assessment, and you can put it into your own folder. So the first thing you'd want to do is you've got this gray bar up here at the top, and we've been working in this area under Build Content, but now we're going to come over here to the assessment side. And over here is where we can actually build our test. And it'll actually be a two-step process. So you first click on Test, and then you have to create the test. If you haven't created it before, you see I've got a couple in here that I've kind of created in the past, but we'll create a new one just for you guys today. So you click Create. You have to name your test. So I'm going to call this Online Training Test. So we name our test, and then if we have a description that we want to put in there, maybe something like this test covers the first 3 weeks of class. Whatever kind of, oops, I spelled, there was misspelling in here. So again, you can change this, you can put any kind of description in here that you want, and that works out relatively well. And then if there's any special instructions for this test, you can put them here. So you might want to say, this is a multiple test or multiple answer test. I mean, again, whatever you want to put in here as your description or your instructions for that test, you can go ahead and do so. Once you've got all that done, then you go ahead and submit it. Once you submit it, then it takes you out to this area here where it says now you can create your questions. So this is an area where you have to really know what your question is going to be, and you're going to have to type in each individual question and indicate the individual answers. Later on, I'll talk to you about how to import a test from a publisher's site, so you don't have to type in all of those questions. But this is like if you had a quiz that was only going to, maybe it was a 10-question quiz or a 5-question quiz or something like that. This would be the place that you could do that. So we want to create a question. So we click on Create Question, and you can see all the questions that you can create. You can create calculated formulas, or either-ors, or essays, or fill in the blanks, or matching, multiple answer, and there's even a few more down here. Ordering, quiz bowl, short answer, true, false questions. So all of these are available to you. And, as we all know, there's certain complexities to some of these questions. If you put in here multiple answer, you're going to probably have to, if they don't exactly match up your answers, you're probably going to have to come in here and look at each result and figure out if the student really did get the right answer or not, and then manually correct that. Multiple choice, obviously that's a pretty simple one, pretty cut and dry. The computer will grade those. I've used those quite a bit myself. You can also mix up some true-false questions in there. Again, pretty straightforward, and the computer will keep that pretty straight for you. So let's take a look at a multiple choice question. So we have a multiple choice question, and again, under question title, I'm going to say it's just going to be title number 1. And what is my question? My question is going to be Earth is the blank planet from the sun. Okay? So now, or from the sun, not some. Okay? Then I come down to my options. How do I want these things to appear? If I want my answers, do I want my answers to be in Arabic numerals, 1, 2, and 3, Roman numerals, 1, 2, and 3, or do I want upper or lowercase letters? I'm going to go with uppercase letters. And then how do I want? Do I want them vertical or horizontal? And I think I'm going to go with vertical because that's just what I like. And then also, do I want to show my answers in random order? That's not a bad idea. That way students won't be able to say that the answer to 1 is going to be A and the answer to 2 is C, because your answers are going to be randomized for each question. Now, one of the things when you're doing multiple choice, you can choose the number of answers you want, but you cannot choose less than 4. So if you click on here, you can have 5 multiple choice answers, you can have 10 multiple choice answers, and you can have 20 multiple choice answers, but you cannot go less than 4. So we're going to go with 4, and I'm going to type in here that it's the first planet. So I just put in first, and oops, let's spell it right. And then we can come down here and say it's the second. Let's say it's the third. And let's say it's the fourth. Okay? And I think we all know that it is actually the third planet from the sun. So if I click this little radio button here, it puts a mark in there, and that tells me that it's the correct answer. All right? Then as I scroll down, I can decide on which feedback I want to have. Now, if you really want to be kind of really spice this up a little bit, you can get them a correct answer. So if they get the correct answer, you can say, good job, with an exclamation point. If they get the wrong answer, you can say, sorry, wrong answer, try again. Okay? So you get to now insert some of those annoying little sayings that you get when your computer doesn't work the way you want it to, and you get those error messages. Now you get to create those error messages for your students. I don't use this very often, but every once in a while it might be kind of interesting to do. Or it could even be helpful, especially in an online class, if you want to try to coach the students towards the right answer. Instructor notes. I have not used this area. I would imagine it would be something that might help me out if I'm coming back in to review the questions. And then I submit that question. So I submit it. And so here is the question. It says multiple choice. Earth is the blank planet from the sun. And then here's the says it's the third. So and it shows me my feedbacks. And then if I want to, I can go ahead and select a second question. And again, we'll have a multiple choice question here, and again we go through that same process. So the question title is going to be number 2. The question is, I'm going to say, is Mars is known as the blank planet. Okay, and so I come down here, and again, how do I want my answers? I'm going to do them in uppercase letters. I'm going to keep it vertical. I'm going to randomize my answers. My first answer is going to be, it's known as the red planet, which also happens to be correct, so I leave the radio button attached. I can put down it's the blue planet. I can put down here that it's the white planet, or I can put down here it's the green planet. Okay? So and then again, we can come down here and do whatever feedback that we want to do. Okay? Okay, so after we've created our question, again, we come to the bottom and we submit it. Once we have this all submitted here, we can click OK. We got all our questions, we click OK. Then it comes back to here, and this time I click on the online training test. So click on the title. And I hit to highlight it, and then click submit, and that test should be loaded then. Oh, here it is. Here comes back up. If I need to make any changes, I can. Then I can look down here at my test availability. Do I want to make this link available? I'm going to say yes. That means that students will be able to access it. Do I want to add a new announcement for this test? I could, and that means that a new announcement would go out automatically from Blackboard. Multiple attempts. Do I want to give students multiple attempts at this? Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. I've gone both ways on that. Do I want to force completion? Yes, I do. I want them to sit down and take this test in one sitting and not go back and forth. And do I want to give them a time frame on this? Well, I sure do. I don't think they need an hour to take this 2-question test. So I'm going to change this to 15 minutes. So they have 15 minutes to take the test. Now here's one thing that's of interest to all of you. If you ever receive a notice from Learning Support Services that a particular student requires extra test time, you have two options. Option one would be to create a second test for them and give them a much longer test time up here. Or what you simply can do is leave this auto submit piece off, and when the time expires, you tell the student who needs more time to just keep working on through it. The computer will calculate the amount of extra time that they have taken and will post their test into the needs grading area of the grade book so that you can then review it and decide if you want to accept that test or not. For example, if you give a student a test and it takes everybody, say, 20 minutes to do, but you got somebody who spent 3 hours on it, that might be excessive. You may not want to accept that. Obviously, you're going to set that up ahead of time with your students in your syllabus and tell them, what an acceptable extended period would probably be, and that could be based on a case-by-case basis. But the bottom line is that anytime any student goes beyond this 15-minute time limit, the computer will flag that test. You'll have to go in there and look at it and see how much time they exceeded by and determine if that's a realistic in your mind, and then go ahead and allow that grade to go through. If you're issuing this test to just a couple of people, you can put in a password. I've done this a couple of times with makeup exams because the entire class is usually notified that the makeup exam has been put up on Blackboard. I just put a password in here. A lot of times I just use the password makeup, and then the students who are taking the exam have to type in this word, the password, before they can get into it, and that prevents other students from going in there and taking the exam. I don't use the due date very often for myself, so you might want to do that. Here, if you include this test in the Grade Center score calculations, it'll automatically create a column in your grade book and post the grades right in there. You can decide how you want the feedback presented to the students. Do you want them just to get a score? Do you want them to see the submitted answers, correct answers, or feedback? And again, I've got some feedback stuff in there, so I might click on feedback. Then I can decide, do I want my students to see all the questions at one time? Do I want them to see them just one at a time? Again, I can make that choice. And if I want to, I can even say prohibit backtracking, which means that a student, once they answer question 1, they cannot go back to question 1 once they've moved on. And then the other thing I like to do to help keep cheating down is I like to randomize the questions. This way students can't get on the telephone and say, okay, I'm working on my test, you're working on your test, yep, okay, what do you got for question 1? And the guy says, and they read question 1, and they realize that they both don't have the same question 1. Plus the fact, if you remember, I randomized my answers within my test, so I've got randomized questions, randomized answers. They can't backtrack, and they only get the questions one at a time. They're not going to be able to do this test together on the telephone. So that really helps avoid all that. And then I just click submit, and that test now should be loaded into my course folders and content area. And again, if you remember, every time I add something new to Blackboard, it ends up putting it at the very bottom. And here it is right here, online training test. This test covers the first 3 weeks of class. So it's right here for all of us to see. Okay? So that's how you do an online assessment. So thank you, and I will talk to you again soon. Bye now.